And then when we do, I know with a lot of our Nakota ceremonies, and they're different, like Renita says. The Nakotas here do it a little different from the ones in Lodgepole and Hayes. And we do it a little different from the ones down below at Fort Peck. But like at our sweat ceremonies, we'll go in from the south and all the men will sit on this east side. And all the women will sit on the west side. The chief of that ceremony, he'll sit almost in the middle, but mostly on the women's side. When you go to a Sundance ceremony, same way. The women sit on the east side, all the men and males will sit on the west side. At a pipe ceremony, the men, we sit in a circle, try to make a complete circle. When we do go to these ceremonies, and it's all of our ceremonies, we're in prayer. We pray a lot because we ask for a lot and we need a lot of blessings. We pray for good health. We pray for long life, good relationships, stuff like that. We pray for one another. And at the same time, we pray for all our relatives. When you think about it, that grass out there is alive. That's a living spirit, and that's our relative. The trees, the rocks, the water, all these animals, they're all our relatives. Creator put us all together. And we as two-leggeds, we're supposed to be the smartest and the chief of all these. We understand that we're related to all of it. And they all have gifts. They all have blessings for us. I don't think there's a single thing out there that is bad for us, that doesn't have a gift to share with us human beings. And so, I kind of overdone Renita's talk, I'm sorry.
That's fine, because he had a question. That's fine. Yeah.
So that's the way I understand it. And the Lakotas and Dakotas and Nakotas, we're Nakotas. We split off as well. Us Nakotas, we come north. We come real north and west. Dakotas and Lakotas, they stayed to the east of us, like North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota. We came over in Montana. We just split off because our territory is so big and we were growing so much. You know, at one time there was over 1 million of us just in Montana. In the 1700s, there was over 1 million Nakotas just in Montana. And so I think with all our relatives, we all kind of have the same story on how we split off. You know, up here in the big Rocky Mountains, Blackfeet, where the Blackfeet have settled, and even as far down as around Fort Benton. There was a tribe here, they're still alive, they're called Kiowas. But Kiowas are in Oklahoma mostly now, but they started off up here in Montana, the Kiowas. and now they're settled way down in Oklahoma. And that's another tribe that split off from everybody. Kiowas were up here, and then we had Nez Perce up here, and Shoshones. Oh, we all kind of lived together. Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. So, is there any more questions?
Do you guys have like we call it a whip woman in Arapaho? Like my mom said this Christmas they have the dog dance during Christmas time. You know, it's like they usually do it around that time every year, and they haven't had it for a while, and they finally did. And she said that there was all kinds of kids just running around. Nobody was sitting still, and so she went to ask if she could be the whip woman for each of the years, because there's one for Arapaho and, you know, just different areas.
Yeah.
So she went to go ask one of the elders if she could volunteer to keep other people's kids in line if the parents weren't gonna do it for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But is there one up here that do that up here or no?
No.
We have
No.
a whip man like that. Our powwows, every powwow's got a whip man, and then at all our other ceremonies, we have camp criers, like at our Sundance and our sweats and stuff. And that camp crier, he does everything that Sundance maker or that sweat maker wants the people to do. So he'll tell that camp crier. He'll only talk to him, and then that camp crier tells the whole camp and everybody all these protocols. And if I actually have seen if people don't listen,
Yeah.
they're asked to leave. And if they don't leave, well then you could call on like the Dog Soldier Society to remove them, because they're not listening and they're interrupting. And we don't see a lot of that today, because like I said, we became more kind. But when we were little kids, oh geez, that whip man was going around and he had an actual whip. And if you were raising Cain at a powwow or something, he had every right to whip you across your butt and send you back to your camp. And if you didn't do that, if he had to take you to your parents, they could fine your parents. They could fine them $100 for your kid running around. They could embarrass them. A lot of times if they wanted to embarrass somebody, maybe they were there drunk and they weren't taking care of their family, they would call them out to the middle of that powwow dance circle in a good way and act like they were going to honor them, and then they would embarrass them and put a big old bowl of soup out there and make them eat that whole thing, sit there and eat it. And all these other men were around and would make sure they did that. If he didn't do that, they were dragging his ass out of there, you know, and probably getting him thrown in jail. Yeah, it was. That's how we policed each other way long time ago. You know, and different tribes have different kind of societies. Like you said, your mother wanted to be the whip woman. I know you go over in North Dakota, and I think it's the Arikaras. They're related really closely to the Grovans here as well. They're really called River Grovans, and their Sundance leader is a woman, and yeah, it ain't a man, it's a woman. She leads the whole Sundance. She's the whole boss. And I know that one at, I think it's at White Shield or around there. it's been going on for over 140 years, and that woman is, she's the leader, but she's passed it down to all her relatives. Like maybe 7 or 8 generations of that woman's one family became the leader, and it's been passed down from woman to woman, woman to daughter, woman to daughter, and it's good. I mean, they have really strong ways, and it's different from us, but who's to say it's wrong? Not me. And yeah, our elders and our women really policed and took care of our children, maybe our special ones, you know, and then our warrior societies, they took care of everything else. So they had to protect us, you know, one way or another was their job.
How about when the clones come?
Oh, you want to talk about protocols when the wheat goes come?
For instance, the Weetuos are the clowns. Some people call them the clowns. Are the contraries. I think the Lakotas call them the contraries. But they are, they're actually a society in themselves, and they're actually very powerful in that they pray for people, and they can facilitate healing for people. But they're also very comical. You know, in our native culture, we are known for our native humor, and so they dress up and gunny sacks and old ragged clothes, and you usually can't tell who they are because they cover their face, and they do comical things like run around camp backwards. They do things opposite. They'll throw dirt at themselves. Instead of washing their hands, they'll go rub their hands in the dirt. They do things opposite. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I think that one of the reasons I gathered from why they do things opposite, it's to help remind the people to be grateful for what they do have. Because be grateful, for instance, for the food on your table, because there may come a day when you don't have food on your table. And so it's like the opposite. They demonstrate the opposite. And it's to teach people values, it's to teach people to be grateful, and it's good. But one of the things they do at the Sundance, and sometimes at the powwows too, I've seen them come out at powwows. They will come out, and they usually are carrying branches, willow branches, and they will go through the crowd, and they will bless you. They're praying for you when they're doing that. And so it is protocol to show respect when they're doing that, you know. And usually we tell our children, don't look at them. I remember my mother used to say, don't look at them because, and don't run around in front of the camp when they're coming, because they might take you. They'll steal you. They used to tell us that. They like to steal little boys and girls. If you don't behave, they're going to steal you. And so we were always respectful, and we would always hide when they were coming around the circle, because they would come around in the circle. But one of the things that we would do, that people would do, is build a tripod and put gifts on that tripod. Like you could tie up, cut in a cloth, tie up food or whatever you wanted to gift them with. You could tie it up and you could tie it on that tripod and you could put it out in front of your camp, and they will know that when they're coming around that that's for them. Yes.
They knocked down ours at a Sundance one time, and they're like, their camper was right by our tent, isn't it right? Yeah.
And they knocked down your camp?
No, not they knocked down our little like.
Oh, your little tripod?
Yeah, ain't it like a peace offering?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And didn't you have to like stand up when they came out and look different ways?
Mm-hmm. You can turn your back. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Women's side and men's side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're very observant. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Sundance.
And a lot of times people will offer them tobacco in gratitude for the fact that they're praying for us.
Thank you.
But back in the day, one of the fun things they used to do was a long time ago. They would, when they would have like the Sundance, they would usually butcher a buffalo, and the clowns would take. They usually would butcher a buffalo, and they would take parts of the buffalo, including the guts, and they'd carry them around, clamp, and they'd throw them at you. If you were lucky, you would get a nice piece of rump, and then you could, have meat for your meal. But a lot of times, if you are unlucky, you might get a piece of punch. That was one of the fun things that they used to do. My mom remembers them doing that. Oh,
There's
yeah.
this one clown that went to like the circle lodge pole.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the lodge made out of branches.
Uh-huh.
One clown just took a piece and started breaking it.
Oh,
Like it was looking at him.
that was in Lodgepole?
No, it was
No.
in Montreal.
Oh, mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
meant to say just lodge.
Well, if I can,
Which lodge?
The Oswego.
Oswego? Oh,
Sundance.
I never got to go there yet. I want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Go ahead,
good.
Buster.
Wanagash, long time ago,
Huh.
even before we had pipes, there was a plague that came to the people. And we started dying. And we didn't have, none of our medicines were working to cure the people and prevent all this death. And so this guy, usually we go fast and pray up on a hill out in the open. He went and he fasted. They say 7 days in a cave. And when he got done with his fast, he got that message. He said, this is a really, really bad spirit that is among the people, and he's taking as many souls as he could take. And so that's why we're dying. So there's only one way you can get rid of that spirit, and that's to reverse yourself. Everything you do is backwards. It's going to confuse him and run him off. He won't know what to do. So when you do that, when you walk backwards, when you wear funny clothes, everything you do is backwards. from what we do today. So when you're praying and you're crying, and backwards guys, they're laughing and they're raising hell and having fun. And so that confused that spirit. Everything they did was backwards. And they washed up with sand and they dried off with water. They rode their horses backwards, you know. And like when they were praying and they wanted to bless, like that Sundance, they pulled a tree out, started breaking it. That was backwards. They didn't want that thing to break. So they did it so it would stay strong. And so when they prayed and they laughed and raised hell, what they were really doing inside of them and in their prayers was they were crying. They were crying for the people. But because they were backwards and they were told to be backwards, they were laughing and raising Cain. Opposite, yeah. And that, being that opposite, confused that bad spirit. And he didn't know how to deal with them. He didn't know what the heck that was. Why are these people so crazy? I don't want one of them crazy spirits. And they run him off. They would take a pipe and they won't smoke it because that was backwards.
And turn it backwards.
Yeah. Everything was backwards, and it confused that bad spirit, and it left the people, and we got healing from that. We got to be healed. And so they took those branches that they carried and that bow and arrow that they carried, and they might shoot you with that bow and arrow. They'll touch you and hit you with the branches. And that was backwards too. They want you to be healed by our sacred tree, and that's why they touched you with that. Okay. So, I mean, that's another story into itself. That takes 3 days to tell. And they only tell it this time of the year, in the winter time. But that's just a little bit of it. When you want the whole story, you go to an elder and a spiritual man, and you offer them goods, offer them tobacco. Speaking of which, I want to talk a little about protocols. When you ask for prayers from a spiritual leader, from an elder, they say you always offer tobacco first. That's the main thing. And when you offer goods for your prayers and what you're asking for, many times we're asking for life or death, health and healing. So you always want to try and offer 4 things. Tobacco first. Some kind of prayer cloth. Some cloth so that spiritual leader can offer that on your behalf. And then you want to give them something to eat. Maybe some meat. And then some tea. And what that spiritual leader will do is he'll cook that up and he'll make that tea. And he'll offer that food and that tea on your behalf. Not for him. He's doing it for you and your prayers. So all these 4 things that you offer, that spiritual leader is so kind-hearted and loves you so much that he's going to take that out and he's going to offer it to all these good spirits out here on your behalf. So when you ask and you go to ceremonies and you ask for something like that, try and do your best to offer those 4 things of what you're asking for. Tobacco, cloth, something to eat, maybe some peppermint tea. Those are just the 4 basic things, the 4 essential first things. Some people will offer blankets, offer more smudge, sweetgrass, whatever they got. Some people will even give horses away. I seen a guy give a pickup away. He gave it to the spiritual leader, a pickup. And he said, this is for my prayers. I want you to have this. What time? Oh, we're at 2.